hard to believe that.
But it takes us back because like when you look at, you can't help but say to yourself, did I get life wrong? Did I just fuck up? Like really get it wrong? Because you spend your whole life trying to accomplish something, and then when you accomplish it, you don't feel great about it ever, right?
Mm.
I mean, I was in the music business, and I remember I got a call, and the guy calls me up. The owner of the label, it was the owner of Universal, Doug Moore, not the owner, CEO. Doug Morris calls me up. He's like, Joe, you have the #1 record in the country, because we did Lean Back with Fat Joe.
Oh yeah.
And he said, how do you feel? I'm like, great. I hung up the phone. I'm like, I don't feel great. Like that was like such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even enjoy the moment. And these people, they're just happy.
Yeah.
They are just happy. They're just happy. Like they don't need much. They got their Land Rover or the Defender that they drive around in. They
Yeah.
hang out with their friends, and they even like, I'm Italian, going back to the Italian culture. Wow. Go and have a big meal and hang out with family and
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
talk shit, get into arguments,
Yeah.
have coffee and gelato, and everybody's happy. You just got to say to yourself, sometimes you work so hard. Is it really? It's odd to reach goals and then not feel good about it,
You think that when you reach that goal, it's gonna get you there, and then you get there.
and then you're like, that's not.
It's so weird that like 3 days ago, a video came up, and it was Rick Rubin who said the exact same thing about when License to Ill hit #1 for the
Same,
Beastie Boys.
right?
He said the
He
same exact thing that you just said.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
Same exact thing.
We had. I mean, it's such a big. Well, there's two things with that. First of all, when you get a #1 record, everyone calls you and say, "You got the #1 record. How do you feel?"
That's what happened.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, I'm not feeling. But Rick Rubin is, I mean, what a tremendous artist. Like, I worked with him on a record, and just to watch him work, he doesn't play an instrument. He plays nothing. And he just listens and he has his head back and he's like, I want guitars, I think, something. Can you put something?
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not it. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's brilliant, right? That's amazing. But yeah, it's really funny.
He got a call, and they said you got the #1 record. He said that he didn't know. He was, I mean, sure he probably knew he had made a great record. He's like, how do you feel? And he goes, I've never been more unhappy in my life.
That's what he said?
Swear to God.
Oh
I'll
my
have to
God,
find it.
that
And
is
he's
so
sitting
funny that
Indian
I brought that
style
up.
in his chair and a giant beard.
Yeah, with
you know.
dreadlocks.
Yeah. And I just thought that was so interesting because, I mean, my best friend was so happy-go-lucky in high school, and really back then didn't have much money. Lived in a small apartment with his family in
Right.
Palm Air, and then he sells his company for 200 or $2.5 billion, and he's miserable.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember because the week after they sold and closed, it was December of 2007, and he had bought use of this historic house in Aspen at auction for like 10 days. And so we went out, there was like 14 of us and the kids and everything. And he sold and closed and funded. And I was just like, oh, he's going to hopefully cut loose a little. He's been stressing. He was just like on the phone and email the whole time. I'm like, dude, it's done. Like,
It's
the deal's
over.
done.
Deal's
They don't
done.
even need you to stay. There's no earnouts. And they're like, and
You lose identity, man. And that's why this Africa trip was very valuable to me, because it's a reminder. You know what's a reminder too, actually?
what's that?
Golf.
Yeah,
Golf will humble the shit out of you.
yeah.
And I'm not a good golfer at all. I'm working my handicap down from 18. So there's no,
It's a tough
but a
sport.
stroke a hole is not terrible for me, right? So I could still play, right? With people. But when it goes bad, it goes horribly bad. And it takes a lot to gather that up. Like when you hit a bad drive, like off the tee, you're like, motherfucker, that next shot is this. You can't.
You know,
Golf is my nemesis now. How you doing?
I was excited about this conversation and wanted to just hear like the beginning of your story. You grew up in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and it seems like
Yeah.
you've got, you're Italian, you know, mom and dad, like got the whole big Italian family, and you kind of got started in as an entrepreneur early on.
Yeah,
And just
that
love to
that
hear
was
the
through
beginning.
no I had no choice. You know, I grew up in Brooklyn. My dad was a cab driver, and I just really had we had struggles from public assistance to not opening up the refrigerator and not knowing what was there. So at a young age, I said, well, now I have school or I could go to work.
Hmm.
And as much as my parents would get upset when I would cut school, I was also, going to work and doing stuff. So I wound up, long story short, I've done it all. I've worked every job. You can't name a job that I haven't done. I've worked construction. I was a plumber, a roofer, or electrician, whatever job I could get.
Hmm.
And that's up until like, I want to say at 14, 15, I was working restaurants, whatever I could get. I got my GED, so I didn't graduate high school. And I went, I had dreams of becoming a race car driver because I was working as a mechanic at the time, and that
Mm.
was my real passion. So there was a guy, his name was Mr. Angelo. He was a big influence in my life, and he had a shop in Brooklyn that worked on Alfa Romeos, and occasionally there'll be a Ferrari that'll show up, or a Maserati or something cool. And I worked for him for free in the beginning, and he wouldn't let me touch anything. I mean, I was allowed to sweep the floors, not touch the car. He was, no, you touching the car. And I would just watch him work. And obviously, over time, he would let me do, okay, you could do shocks or brakes or
Hmm.
tune-ups. And but he was so influential because he took a precision approach to everything he did. So when he's putting a head on, he's torquing it exactly, going double check. Everything was absolutely meticulous. The shop was a mess, but when he's working,
Yeah.
I mean, if something was off a millimeter, take it apart. It was
Oh, wow.
had to be perfect, and that was very influential on me because
Hmm.
I wasn't exposed to that. I was exposed to get the job done really
Right.
quick, and so and he had an old Alfa Romeo race car sitting in the back that he wrecked. And I would pick on him a little bit, say, hey, let me work on the race car because I was screwing around with go-karts and,
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that and just trying to, and he let me rebuild that car, and that's what got me into cars. And kind of that was my entry into racing because he took me to Lime Rock when I was
Oh, yeah.
15. And I was just taught me how to drive, and then he kind of sponsored me. So then he was bringing in cars from Europe. At the time, they were gray market cars.
Hmm.
It was very popular at the time. He decided he wanted to retire, move back to Italy. Now I'm 17.
Hmm.
He said, take everything. And it was now my shop. I wasn't qualified
Hmm.
to do it, but I figured it out. And we did quite well until that gray market got turned around a little bit. The government was making it more difficult to bring the cars in,
Hmm.
and the exchange rate got out of whack.
Oh, yeah.
So I was stuck, and I was making okay money. So my family was good. I was helping support my mom and dad and my sister, and I just had to go get a job.
Hmm.
So I sold a few cars to some guys on Wall Street, and I got a job on the Florida New York Stock Exchange, starting in the same place, sweeping floors.
Wow.
Then uh, moved up the ladder because they were all at the time the New York Stock working on the New York Stock Exchange. It was paper tickets. It was older
Yeah.
guys from from Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx and mostly uneducated. It was right before that big trend. If you don't have a Harvard degree, you can't work here.
It's like mid 80s,
Yeah, late 80s,
late
late
80s. Yeah.
80s, early 90s. And so I got in right under the wire and I moved up the ladder and had some great mentors and started trading and building relationships. And then when I was 24, I started my own firm with the backing of some friends from the street. And we were getting a lot of wholesale work from big firms. So that at the time, we charged 2 cents a share and just
Yeah.
traded out 2 cents a share,
It's volume.
yeah, just tremendous volume.
Hmm.
And I built this company up to, 400 employees, 5 offices. But I worked for a company called Gruntle and Company, the oldest New York Stock Exchange member firm. And this is actually a really funny story. So when I left, it was like Jerry Maguire. I said, "Who's coming with me?" And everyone said, "Nobody," right? But I started to recruit slowly. So it was me and my two partners, and you know, we're coming out of big firms. So they're like, "Look, when we started the firm, they're like, look, we have to put a show on. You can't." I was looking to rent an office space at the S&P building, which is an old, excuse me, old beat up building. Like, no, 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 we got to go big. I'm like, "Well, how big do you want to go?" Like, you got to go. We got to give an impression here. We can't just. We're competing with Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch. Like, guys are not going to want to work here unless it's great. I'm like, "It's all you had to say." So I rent 2 floors, 800 Third Avenue, 2 floors. At the time, it was unheard of. And I hired this designer, and she came in, and no budget. Just
Yeah.
when you walked in my lobby, the name of the firm was Nichols Safina Lerner. It was stunning. Everybody wanted to work there. It was like amazing, but still, no one's really coming because it's hard. But we're recruiting hard, so we're working, and we're working on books, and we're trading, and we're just not making it.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back to the guy who put up most of the money for us to get started. He's like, "I told you not to get that office space. I told you it's too
Mm-hmm.
much space. You're killing us.
Yeah.
Stupid. You're
Overhead.
young. Too much overhead." So he's kicking my ass, yelling at me. I'm like, "Look, I need $1 million or we don't make it." He's like, "I'm not doing it." I said, "Oh shit. What do we do?" So this is a great story because it relates back to your a little bit about your history. Now we're in 94. Yeah, 94. It was actually 93. So I said to my partners, "Look, we're going out of business. It's clear we're not going to make it. Um, let's give it one try." So I called up Miller Motor Cars and spoke to Warner, who I knew for many years from the racetrack, and I said, um, "Do you have any 348 Spiders?" He's like, "I got 3 here." I said, "We'll be there in a little bit." Put it on my credit card, financed it, like not the whole car, the deposit got approved. One of my partners had bad credit. I had a co-sign for him. I'm like, "We're all going down."
Yeah.
We drive the cars, pull up in front of Gruntal, and just go buy hot dogs. Now I'm questioning whether I could afford the hot dog at this point, right? So um, everyone comes out and they're like, "Oh my God, they got beautiful offices. How did they even get these?" Because you remember, like that was a hot ticket. Like to get the first 3, 348 Spiders. They were
Yeah.
actually registered as a 93, not a 94. We got the first 3 in
Yeah.
the country. We just caught it right. And
They were pretty cars.
yeah, oh, they were great cars, but well, they were pretty cars.
Yeah, they're pretty. They're
Let's leave it
pretty.
at that. Uh,
355, great car.
yeah,
They're
great car.
48.
Um, so everyone's like, "Oh my God, they're
Yeah.
killing it. Oh, they got Ferraris. You want to go for a ride?" So next thing you know, gradually over the course of the year, we emptied out their Midtown office, and then their LA office, then their Boston office, then their Florida office. And they sued me for corporate rating. And it's actually case law in law schools. It was the largest Wall Street corporate rating case in history. And I had an ego this big. I'm young. I'm making a shit ton of money. I got a red Ferrari outside. I mean, what else could be better? I didn't even know how to spend the money. Like I was getting paychecks. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. What do we do? Like, what can we do to get rid of this money? I had a house in Greenwich, Connecticut, apartment in the city, Hamptons. We're just doing it.
Yeah.
And these lawsuits are coming in, and first the legal bill came in an envelope, then it came in the big envelope, then it came in like a little FedEx box, then it came in like a box this big. So we're spending 200 grand, 300 grand a month defending this case. And long story short, we sold the firm going into 97, and the same month that I sold the firm, I lost the lawsuit. And it was a
Wow.
big number. The same guys that dropped off all the exotic cars, the same flatbed guy was picking them up and getting them out.
Oh, wow.
I go flat broke. Broke actually, and Trump said it best. The guy on the street was in better shape because he's at zero. I was I was buried,
in the red.
non-dischargeable in bankruptcy because it was with malicious intent and this other stuff. So you're paying it, and it was a
Wow.
very bad time. So I had to reinvent myself, and that story went. I got on a call. This you're gonna love too. I got on a call with all of my investors and my friends and guys who own, all older guys, like
Mm-hmm.
old timers. I said, look, I've made you guys a ton of money. I made sure everybody made money. I'm broke and I need support. I want to start a fund. You know, I can trade. I need you guys to support me. Every person on that call wrote a check, big check. So now I got 30, 40 million bucks to trade. And the first 2 years, I got absolutely rocked. So now I'm coming out of losing my firm. I still have my apartment that I was renting in the city because it wasn't purchased, barely making my rent. It was a long way down.
Mm-hmm.
And now the one thing I was good at was trading, and I'm getting my bell rung. And I can't take fees. The deal I cut was I can't take fees unless there's profits. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just, oh my God. So it was hard for me to even get out of bed. It was a very difficult time. And I just kept pushing. And then I was just like, I have to go back to basics, get back to basics. I realized something. I was such a great trader. I mean, people would say I was like the best. Like if you talk to some of the old timers like Ace Greenberg, Artie Pacheco, they all know me. Like I worked under those guys. And I was really good because I had order flow. So it was really easy. I had order flow. Anybody could be great if you got order flow. Now I don't have order flow. So I had to stumble through that, and I had a tremendous hit. It was a company called Enzo Biotech. Went from, it was like I backed up the boat on because I'm going down anyway. At that point, it was like another Ferrari story. I'm like, fuck it, it's over anyway. I'm done. This. I'm going to be back. I always said I'd go back to fixing cars
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I was good at.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a backup plan, and I almost wanted to, in a way, because it was easier.
Yeah.
But
You didn't have the
anyway,
pressure.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was just a simpler time, you know?
Right.
You
And
you're taking something apart, you're using your skill and your mind,
predictable. Like
put it
yeah.
together, and then you put the car in, it starts some of the time,
Yeah.
and you accomplish something and you get that dopamine, like I did it
Yeah.
there. But so there was a part of me that was
So
kind of,
tangible.
yeah,
Like
you could feel it, you could
smell the
touch it. It's not
and yeah.
trading a stock where, and the paper losses are just like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
spreadsheets. And that stock went from $3 to $85, and I had options. I had it,
Wow.
and wound up redeeming everybody after 3 years. Gave everyone back their money. Plus, I think they made, honestly, I think they made 30% a year at the end of the day when I was all done with everything. I got all my fees, and I'm like, I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm taking this money I got. I could live a very good life with this. Um, and took a step back. So that's my story into my 20s. You didn't expect that one, did you?
No, I knew a couple of the bullet points, but I certainly didn't know all that, and it was like kind of like hearing it for the first time. But like, I want to go back to your mentor, Angelo.
uh,
Like, how much do you think that played into like your life now? Because when I'm hearing you telling that story, I'm hearing somebody that taught you not only work ethic, like putting in the time and effort and the hustle, but also doing things the right way.
yeah,
At that age seems to be super like incredibly valuable, like that you could carry that to anywhere you went in life. That doesn't mean that you would be a successful stockbroker
right.
necessarily, but like
So it was very, very impactful. Um, Sometimes you're there are situations where parents can love you very much, and they could try really hard,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they can't get out of their way, and that happens.
Hmm.
And I love them. And my mom has passed. My dad's 90 years old and still driving, and he's fine, and he's but great health. But and this isn't in no way, shape, or form my disrespecting my family. I'm just saying immigrants came to this country and had it so much better than they did abroad, and they did the best they could. But I needed, and I don't know where I got it from, but I had this desire to do better and to not live like that. And I was motivated by fear. And so if I had not walked into Mr. Angelo's shop, I'm not sure I'd be on this podcast. I don't know. I could have wound up anywhere. He got me off the streets. He gave me a skill that I still use to this day, as you know,
Yeah.
big car guy. Got me into racing, which I've competed at the 24 Hours at Daytona 6 or 7 times with your dad twice. 12 hours of Sebring, 24 hours of Dubai. Got an invite to Le Mans, didn't work out, but so I give a lot of credit to him for all of my successes, and don't know where I would be. Maybe I'd be further along. I don't know, but he taught me something very special,
Yeah.
and I hope to pass that on to my kids. Just for example, my son, who's 24, it's time for him to get a car. I didn't buy him a car. I said, you got to build a car, and I'll do it with you. But you got to build a car and drive stick, because that's, again, a basic motor skill. You
Yeah.
got it.
Sure.
So we
Sure.
built a dune buggy. Bought a dune buggy for $700, took it
Wow.
all apart. I made him build the motor. When he went to bed, I went and did it right. But the look on his face when that thing started
Mm.
for the first time, and he kept that dune buggy for years, and he loved it. And him and his friends, from pushing it home, the normal, when it broke
Mm.
down, pushing it home, and trying to get it started, and working with his friends. It was just a great experience. And now I have two little ones. I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my 12-year-old knows full well he's not getting a car until he builds one, because you got to be able to work with your
Yeah.
hands to be
Yeah.
successful in life, I think. And you got to have some basic understanding. So, just the point that I would like to pass a small piece of Mr. Angelo down to my children, I think speaks volumes.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And I think that, I mean, did you just walk into a shop one day and ask for a job?
Yeah, he threw a wrench at me, and he told me to get out of his shop, and I just showed up the next day. And he told me to get out, and I said, your shop is a mess. I'm going to clean it up. And his wife was the one who was in
Mm.
Italian. She says, just give him a few dollars and let him clean up the shop. And slowly, it's funny.
And like, did
I,
he know your parents at all, or
no,
you just were a kid from the
cold,
hood?
completely cold.
Yeah.
And he finally let me work on a motor. And it was a twin spark alpha uh, out of a GTA. And he said, you're going to build this whole motor yourself. And he's standing over me, and the smell of, he's over me, like in my ear, the smell of like motor oil, espresso, and like bad cologne and cigarettes.
Cigarettes, I was
And
gonna
it's
say, it had to
just
be
right over
cigarettes.
me. And I'm like, holy shit. And the minute I would even make a little bit of a mistake, it would be a smack in the head. No. I'm like, what did I do? Like, well, you didn't line it up. The timing chain is quite complicated. You're off a tooth. It's not a huge deal.
Mm.
You have tolerance, but no, no, no. Has to be right. You didn't count them right or whatever. Uh, you know, so those moments were very impactful, and it goes a long way.
Yeah.
There's many times when I'm working on something and I'm like, what would Angelo do?
Yeah. That's incredible. Were you able to keep in touch at all when you
Yeah,
went
we
back to
stayed
Italy?
in touch. He's actually come to a couple of races. Um, and he passed. Um, and it's just he was a he was a nasty old man, but for me, he was a great
Yeah.
soul,
Yeah.
and he's what I needed at that time. So it was very
Yeah.
impactful.
Yeah. That's amazing. Um, so let's switch over to racing. And so he got you out on the track and you furthered that career. I mean, I'm always curious to hear from people. And I think there's different reasons like why do you love racing? Why did you get into it? What does it mean to you?
So Angelo had a couple of kids that were go-karting that their parents were pretty wealthy, but he was well known. And there's a guy that your dad knows, Joe Stamola,
Yeah.
who was an engineer, who also passed. He was my engineer and a very dear friend, brilliant
Yeah.
guy, idiot savant. Like
Yeah.
he knew that in 1969 he took a pound of pressure out of the left front and everyone went faster. He doesn't know
Yeah.
why. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Joe,
You meet those people in the
yeah,
racing world
yeah.
because
Oh
it
yeah,
is just
amazing.
and yeah, yeah, it's such a unique place.
Yeah, it really is. You find all types of characters. So Joe referred some go-karting kids over to Angelo. So I would go to the track, and one of the kids' dads um, just took a liking to me. He knew I was not doing, you know, he knew my personal story a little bit, and he was spending money like crazy on his kid. And his kid was quick, but so he gave me his son's old go-kart, and he said, "Hey, if you want to race," I go, "But I'm racing against your son." He's like, "I think you'll motivate him. Let's see."
Hmm.
And I went out there and I just took to it. And Angelo saw that I took to it. So I was go-karting uh, in Bridgehampton
Yeah.
when there was a little go-kart track in there. I mean, and sometimes Angelo wasn't able to come because, you know, and I would go on the train with my go-kart with my friends and we'd hold it up on the train,
Oh wow.
carry it through the Long Island Railroad. I mean, the stories are just epic. Anything to race. It was just something as a kid when you grow up in Brooklyn. It's a difficult, it's a little bit different. It's a different place to grow up. So that was my thing, and it, again, kept me out of trouble. And I wasn't great, certainly wasn't great, but I held my own with not very good equipment.
Mm.
Um, so it's always been there. And then I raced the Alpha for quite a bit, and ran the SCCA events. Um, and Angelo was getting a thrill out of watching me drive. So if it was an endurance race, he'd drive with me, and we had a lot of fun. And nothing pro happened though. I wasn't able to get any kind of ride.
Mm.
I did some Formula Atlanta, Formula Ford, and then Formula Continental, like just trying to move up the ladder. And someone would give me a ride, or
Hmm.
someone let me drive. I was doing some coaching. I was all over the place, like whatever
Hmm.
I could do. And then when I started making money, I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. I want to run the 24 hours at Daytona. That's my goal. So there's a guy, your dad knows him, Scooter and Carlos de Quesada, uh, great guys. And I said, Scooter, can you introduce me? Like, what's the car I should get? Should I get a Porsche? Should I get, what should we do? He's like, got to get a BMW. They're killing everybody. I'm like,
Yeah.
great. So I go to Tom Milner from PTG, and Tom said, you're not getting a factory ride. We got Hans Stuck in the car. We got Boris Said, Borcheller's in the car. Like, you're not getting in the car. But he let me drive. He would let me like do test days. Like,
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't understand. Like, maybe I'll get my foot in the door here. And he said, look, you can have that car. I'll give it to you. You got to lease a motor and you got to figure out how to fix it. It was hit hard,
Oh.
hard, hard, hard hit. So me and Scooter brought it to my house, and we took it apart and rebuilt the entire car. It needed some parts, that I scraped up enough money to get, and we
Hmm.
put this car together. And we show up at the 24 hours at Daytona, hoping with an open trailer. Stamola worked for free because he knew me. A few other guys worked for free. I rented a couple of seats out to like really good drivers for a couple of bucks. And I said, look, first of all, we only have enough money to make it 2 hours. It's a 24-hour race.
Yeah, do the math.
And Scooter and I built the car. So most likely this is not going to go well. So, did your dad run in 99? No.
94.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this was, oh, I can't remember what year it was now. So whatever it was, we get out there and it was you had to qualify at 125% rule to qualify. We qualified a car dead last. I mean, when I say dead last, we barely made the show. I remember standing there, and the guy would come out with the paper and put it out whether you made it, and I'm just standing there but biting my nails. I'm like, I don't think we did it. I don't think we did it. And he comes out. He's like, what car number are you? I think it was 53, and he's like, you made the show. Your last one. I'm like, awesome. So we made the show, but we have no money. Um, and we started running.
Sounds like racing to me.
Yeah, that's the way it is. So we start running, and we're starting. Joe was a brilliant engineer. I mean, he was like, okay, look, that got us qualified. We got to get this thing fast. Scooter goes in the car, works with Joe. He's coming in every couple of laps. It's a 24-hour race.
Yeah.
We got time, making adjustments. And we, 2 hours in, we're in, top 20, and all the other BMWs broke. They all broke down or crashed. We're taking tires, because at the time Yokohama was sponsoring the car. We're taking tires out of their dumpster and saying, please put them on our car. Like, we just limped through the entire race, wound up finishing 6th. And we got lucky because it rained, and we were the only car with ABS.
Oh, man.
Could you imagine? So now we're the only car with ABS, and we're the only BMW in the field. So we're getting all the press, and it was a big deal. And that's what got us, like, I wouldn't call it a factory ride, but it was kind of like a semi-factory ride. But then we ran Watkins Glen, Lime Rock. We came in 3rd at Homestead. At the time, Grand Am separated from IMSA, I believe. Yeah. So we couldn't do Sebring. And then I went on to drive a whole bunch of stuff. And 24 hours at Dubai a couple of times. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a great adventure. And it's one thing to drive those races as a gentleman driver, but to start winning, it's mind blowing. Like, to win a race is a big deal. When you look at like Hulkenberg in Formula One, never won a race, right? It's hard to win a race.
Yeah.
And we would go out there and we were competitive, and we were wrenching on our own car and had no money. And it was just a great, great time in racing. It was a great time. When I say a great time, I don't mean I had fun. I meant it was really people connected. Paul Newman was running at the time, and everyone was excited that Paul Newman was there.
Yeah,
but
sure.
but the thing is, everybody was connected to the car, and everybody helped. I blew up a motor I was running a Porsche at the time. I think it was 2001. No, I don't remember. 2002, whatever it was. We blew up a motor, and we're out of money. That's it.
Yeah.
Can't run anymore, right? And sure enough, one of my buddies, I'm like, hey, you got a spare motor? He's like, of course. That's a $70,000 motor. He's like, take it. I'm like, I don't know, like, when I can pay you. He's like, you're good for it. Don't worry about it. Those were the times where we helped each other. And that's a competitor. We wound up beating him, by the way. But, and that was a different time. And that camaraderie and those friendships, I'll always cherish.
There's a collaborative, like, cooperative nature about racing, I think, that you've just noted, that makes it really is a community. And it's you don't see that in the business world. I mean, perhaps in some circles, but that's really my brother is still racing to this day.
Yeah.
And talks a lot about that, and
it's very special. It's something you don't get.
Stuff breaks, and your competitors, like, like,
yeah,
more cars the better. Like, I want to beat you at your best. What do you think draws you to racing, though? Like, more than anything, I think that people come to racing for different reasons: the competition, or the love. There's the tinkerers, like, they love just working on the cars.
It's the only place where I am 100% focused on a single task, yet the entire task is instinctual. I've never went into a corner and said, okay, I'm going to count like some
Yeah.
guys do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm at the 100 marker. It's
Yeah.
okay, 10, 5, 4, 3, shift. I don't, I drive just completely on my instinct. And Paul Newman said it, racing gives me grace. And I like to use that phrase when asked that question simply because you hear nothing, even though you're in a loud car,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, your adrenaline is up, your heart rate is up, you're risking everything, and you ask yourself very complicated questions. Are you willing to die in this car today? Is it worth it? And you ask yourself that question, and the answer is always yes. I remember, this is very funny. I think this is where I met your brother for the first time. There was an amateur series. I don't remember what it was, a Champ Car or something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine calls me up. He's like, Joe, I want to get back into racing. I did some flash. I'm like, look, you're not going to get in a road car. You're going to
Mm.
kill yourself. Like, just do this event and just, it costs you $1,000 to rent the ride and just see if you like it
Mm-hmm.
and just go. So I refer him to this guy at Tree Racing, and he goes and he's like, Joe, they have another seat. Will you come with me? Because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, I'll go drive with you. Why not? It'll be fun. The amateur stuff is great. So I said, okay, I'll go with you. And the team manager was basically saying he's the slowest guy, so we're going to put him in like the C car
Mm-hmm.
that's not has no shot. And I'm like, no, we came here, we rented the car. It's me, him, and another guy running. We're a team, and we're staying. And he was like, no, we're going to put the slow guy in the slow car, and you guys are going to go win the race. I'm like, we're winning. What are we winning? We're
Yeah.
winning an amateur event. So I get into like World War III with the guy. I'm like, look, we're driving this car. And that was very, for him, that was like, holy shit. Like, I'm just looking to get back into, I'll
Mm-hmm.
drive the other car. I'm like, no, you're with us. And he goes in, and he did good. He did really well. He didn't do tremendous, but I handed him the car in like seventh place. Now we're in like 40th. But he kept it on the road.
Yeah.
It's fine, whatever. We pull in, and I'm like, and the guy said, he got in my face a little bit. He says, I told you we were going to lose this race. You cost them. What would it cost us?
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Yeah.
pro racers here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's not a pro event. Like, if it was a pro event, I would say maybe. But anyway, I get in the car. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm doing death-defying shit in this car, trying to get to the front. Like, I said, if I die in this car to prove a point, I'm willing to do that. And you went into the zone. It was a very fun race. We wound up, I think we won it. Yeah, we won it or came in second. I don't remember, but
From 40th.
yeah. Well, from 40 that he, I was not losing. There was nothing you could have done. The car would have had. I mean, I remember the brakes went out, and I'm like, I'll just, I'll blow up the gearbox. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'll figure it out. But yeah, I just sometimes you go into that zone, and it's a very tranquil place. It's a very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
Just feel free, man. When you're in a rate, that's it. You feel free, and that's the only place you can feel free that I find.
So let's like jump back to you sold your stock brokerage firm. You got to reinvent yourself,
Right.
right? It seems to be clearly a lifestyle and a sort of vicious cycle that you want to evolve from.
Right.
Like what happens next?
So I went back to racing as we just discussed, and it was very clear it's not going to be a career choice. But I had a great opportunity to do a lot of that stuff. So I really had to do some soul searching, and I'm like, what do you want to do? Like when you look in the mirror, I could not turn on that computer and pull up a quote anymore. I just couldn't do
Yeah.
it. I've done it too long. Um, Tired of getting up to see what the yen is doing. I'm tired of looking at international markets, of
Mm-hmm.
having no life. Um, just, you live in fear.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like I had, see, the bigger funds that are out there can trade their way out of anything because they have a cash reserve. They can average down, they can do that. I didn't have, it
Yeah.
wasn't even big enough. So, you know, I was, it was a painful place to be. And I'm like, I will never do that again. So I'm like, what can I do? And I realized that, I was taking companies public. We did a number of deals, all with major firms. We did like 7, 8 deals with Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch. Like we were like considered a mid-tier firm, even though we didn't have the capital of some of the, bigger mid-tier
Hmm.
firms. I'm like, I'm good at, what am I good at? I'm half-ass a good race car driver, can't make money doing that. I'm too meticulous to make money in the car business because it just to do that, very few people would be willing to pay for that quality of work. You
Hmm.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? That I would not let out of my shop. Like I
Yeah.
would never let a car go that wasn't perfect because I was trained by the best. And I realized I'm pretty good at building companies. I mean, at a young age, I started broker deal. I was the youngest. I'm not sure. I checked about 10 years ago. I haven't checked since. So you're motivating me to check. But at the time, I was the youngest person in history to own a broker dealer. I was 23 years old and I owned a broker dealer. Nobody was approved
Hmm.
um, at that age. So
Can you even do that now? Like, do you have to be a minimum age or
it's not an age thing. It's more of it would be very
credentials
difficult.
that
It
would?
would be very
Yeah.
difficult to do it now. Yeah. But funny sidebar story, if you don't mind. I gotta just tell the story because you're gonna love this. So I go to the NASD and we go through something called a pre-membership interview. And there's a guy I'll never forget, Lou Pagano. And Lou was the head investigator. And he's looking me in the eye and he's like, I'm not approved. You're a kid. I'm not approving you. Like, oh shit, I'm dead. So I'm talking to my attorney. I'm like, look, they said, look, they can't say no to you. What they
Hmm.
can tell you is you can only have 4 or 5 employees. I'm like, yeah, at the time I thought everybody was coming on. I'm like, I got 400 people. They're
Hmm.
like, it's not going to happen. So I said, Lou, where are you from? He's like, Staten Island. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm from Brooklyn. Trying to find common
Yeah.
ground.
Right.
Got me nowhere. So this is a really funny story. It's embarrassing. I can't believe I'm bringing this up on the podcast. But so I
Perfect.
knew, I knew he lived in Staten Island, right? So I decide that I'm going to hire Lou Pagano from the NASD. Now, keep in mind that was the NASD at the time. Now it's the equivalent to FINRA. So all I have to do is run into him on the Staten Island ferry. So it's very simple.
Oh.
Get up at 5 in the morning, go across, get the ferry schedule, come back. If he's not on that ferry, he's on the next one. Go back. I do this for 2 weeks straight. Never run into him. And I'm getting up at 5. I can't figure it out. So finally, I'm like, let me try the afternoon. He's a worker at for the government. He's probably leaves at 5 on the
Yeah.
nose.
Yep.
So that was it.
Safe
I
bet.
get on the 5:15 Staten Island ferry, walk through the place. I find Lou Pagano. I'm like, oh, Mr. Pagano. I don't know if you remember me. I had my pre-membership interview. He's like, I remember you. I'm like, I go, do you mind if I sit next to you? What a coincidence, huh? And I said, what do you make over at the NASD? He's like, that's a very bold question to ask. I'm like, yeah, it is. What do you make? He told me what the number was, like 60 grand, whatever it
Hmm.
was. I said, would you be willing to have dinner with me? I'd like to discuss something with you. He goes, it would be unethical for me to go to dinner with you because I'm the head of
Hmm.
your approval committee. I'm like, okay. Do you want a job? I just came out and
Hmm.
said it. And he took a pause. He didn't say no right away. I said, I would like to start this firm with you as my compliance director. And he said, okay, I have a lot to think about. Here's my phone number. Now I got him. It's like a girl giving you your phone number. Of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Yeah. Assuming
So,
it's the right number, but yeah.
that's right. In this case, it was. And 2 weeks later, I took him to dinner. He finally agreed. And God, I'll never forget. We went to Smith and Walensky Grill on 49th and 3rd. And for whatever reason, when you're just someone's just a sloppy eater, it's so hard to deal with. Like he's eating pea soup, it's dripping down. I'm like, oh my, it looked like he got shot. Like it was just covered with just. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? He's ordering French fries and pie, and I'm like, oh, this guy's just a disgrace. Like, anyway, long story short, I made him an offer. He said no. He wanted upfront money because he said you're going to go out of business, which long term he was kind of right. Uh, and he wound up coming over.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was the compliance director, he came through the pre-membership interview and he had all his contacts at FINRA. We got everything we want. We were able to make markets, 150 employees out of the gate for
Wow.
every principal. But he was the compliance guy. He was the one who everyone had to answer to. So that's just a funny sidebar. I
Amazing.
wonder what possessed me to jump on that ferry to go chase him down. But that was a very important time because I wouldn't have got the firm up and running had I not been a
Yeah.
stalker.
That's a that's a persistence there that could definitely be a textbook in a business school somewhere for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes you got to chase it.
so when did you get in the music business? When did that happen?
So I decided, going back to your question, I decided I was good at starting businesses, and I was
Yeah.
really I brought up that Lou Pagano story because these things that most people don't do, I was willing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that relates back to racing. I don't know. Maybe some people aren't willing to die in that race car, and I was, and that's why I got
Yeah.
it. So I don't know. So um, I said I have to just focus on buying companies or building my own companies and selling them. That's what I want to do. Um, and when you put something out in the universe, opportunities present themselves. And the music business is another funny story. But I ran into a guy, I was at the tunnel in Manhattan, and I ran into a guy named Steve Rifkin, who was a legend at the time. He had Loud Records, partnered up with him. So we had, Wu Tang Clan, 3 6 Mafia, Alcoholics, Terror Squad. Um, and then there was going, and I realized that I was kind of navigating through. I bought and sold an insurance company. So I
Mm.
already had money from that. Did quite well. It was a friend of mine had an insurance company, was looking to sell it. I said, I need 20% equity to come into the deal and fix it up and get it right. Took me a year and wound up selling it. The multiple was insane. I mean, we got 12x on it. Um, so it went well, and I was kind of getting momentum. But the music business was interesting. I came up with later on in the music business after being involved with a bunch of labels. I was the CEO of Rough Nation, where we had, uh, the Fugees and Criss Cross and Nas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've been around the music business, and I'm making money and I'm doing well. I decided I was out one night and I ran into a guy named Desmond Child, who was a famous rock producer, Bon Jovi,
Mm-hmm.
Aerosmith. And he said, do me a favor, do you have a minute? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm trying to sell my house, but it's converted to a recording studio. Do you want a studio in Miami? But it's a house. It's not a,
Mm-hmm.
he's trying to explain what it is. I'm like, just take me because I don't understand what you're saying. Is it a studio? Is it a house? What is it? He's like, well, it's not zoned as a studio, but we do studio work, so
Mm-hmm.
it's still a house. I'm like, just take me there.
Yeah.
And he took me there, and I bought the house. And through another friend, I ran into an up and coming producer that I thought was amazing. And he's probably, with the exception of Rick Rubin, probably the second best producer that, at least my opinion, is second best producer in on the planet. And his name is Scott Storch. So Scott, who was from Florida, was just trying to figure it out. He had just done Baby Boy for Beyonce, and I ran into him
Mm-hmm.
at a restaurant, And I said, hey, I just bought Desmond Child's house, which, by the way, I didn't even buy it yet. I just said, I might take it, but
Mm-hmm.
I meet Scott. So I'm like, hey, I own the house. You want to be in-house production? Let's try to figure it out. He's like, take me to the house. I'm like, Desmond, where's the keys to the house? And Desmond sends this guy over to open the door. I walk him in, and Scott's like, this is perfect. How much? But I don't have any money. I'm like, no, you're good. Just let's just make some dope records, and let's just
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. Whatever happens, happens. So I immediately go to Desmond. I write him a check. It was short money. It was like 300-400 grand, whatever it was. And I own the house now, and he's in the house, and he's making music like back to back. I have some connections, obviously, through the music business, and we're starting to get like serious placements. Like we did Candy Shop with 50 Cent.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We started to do like big records, like big huge records, and things are just kicking. And we're getting platinum record after platinum record. Everything is great. But Scott had some addiction issues, and he just went off the deep end and blew it all. I mean, I'm talking, he must have blown $30 million. I mean, and it was just a difficult time for him. I was fine because I had the studio
Yeah.
and I had the publishing, I had a bunch of stuff, and we, all these great people that I met. So between Rifkin, Storch, the studios, I come up with this idea, and this is before American Idol. So I come up with this idea where you log on to the computer, pick the producer you want to work with, download just the music portion of the composition, just the beat,
Mm-hmm.
sing or rap over it. Winner gets $1 million in a record deal. Great idea. Who's not going to pay 99 cents for each beat to download? Who has the opportunity to work with all these great producers? So I have everyone. Green Lantern, I got everybody you can imagine. Storch is up there, Cool and Dre, Zucon, everybody's putting up their beats. It's going to be the biggest thing in the world. And but before that, I'm with Doug Morris from Universal, and I was wrapping up a meeting with Rifkin, and I said, I got to go. I got to go to LA. So he's like, oh, I'm going to LA too. I'm like, oh, okay. You want to split a ride to the airport? Excuse me. So he's like, no, I got my G5. You want to ride? You never say no.
I can't
So,
split that one.
no, you can't say no. So I'm like, look, I don't want to seats. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. I'm
Yeah.
playing it real. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
happy to fly. He's like, just come with us, please. So I get on the plane. There's the bench seat in the back. I'm like, I'm just gonna go sit there by myself. Like it's the guy's plane. I'm not gonna be like, so you want to
Yeah.
hang out?
Yeah.
Want to get invited back on the plane, keep it a low profile. So I came up with this concept like maybe the week prior. So I don't have anything. I have nothing. So I'm doing like a PowerPoint, and you know how great I am at PowerPoint. I can't figure it out. I can't get it. Like I'm typing it out on Word. I'm cutting. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I don't know how to do a PowerPoint. And Doug comes and sits next to me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I just working on this situation, this plan. He's like, what is it? I'm like, well, and I just told him what I just told you. You download the beat. And he's like, wow, I really like that. He's like, Nick, come over here. And it was Nick Henney, the CFO. He's like, listen to this guy. So I repeated the story. This is what we do. He's like, okay, I really like that idea. Good job. He just walks away, goes, sits down. So we're about to land, and he comes over. He goes, can you do a demo for me next week? I go, for what? He's like, for your software. Sounds amazing. I want to see a demo. We might want to invest. I'm like, of course. When would you like to do it? He's like, I don't know, a couple of days. I'm like, that's not going to work. Let's do it in a couple of weeks. Let's get back to New York and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I really want to do it in LA. Okay. What's the latest you could do? He's like, 2 weeks, whatever. My girl will call you and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. I have nothing. I have zero. I don't even have a PowerPoint. I have nothing. When I say I have nothing but an idea. So Doug, sure, I've said he's not going to call. I'm not going to stress about
Mm-hmm.
this. So just phone rings. I'm staying at the Peninsula Hotel. Phone rings, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's his assistant. And she says, the meeting's set for next Thursday at the Universal office in LA. And everybody's going to be there. Jimmy Iovine, everybody. This is a big deal. We're letting you know it's going to be, there's a lot of people that are coming that want to see this. I'm like, great. She goes, is it ready to go? I'm like, absolutely. So I'm like, oh, fuck. When I tell you the sweat, I've been broke. I've been cut out of race cars. I've been upside. The stress I felt at that moment was like nothing I've ever experienced. I'm like, holy shit, I'm fucking dead. I am dead. I don't have anything. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to blow the relationship. So, okay, let's go into fix mode, right? Let's go back to the mechanics. Let's go back to Mr. Angelo. Let's go back to basic. I need a developer. So I call up a bunch of headhunters. At that time, there wasn't like Monster where you could
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
So through a referral of a referral, know a guy from Florida. His name's Rich Walkup. Rich, if you're listening, come and verify this story because it's too good. Rich, I call him up. I'm like, hi, this is what I need done. Basics. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom. Sir, I'm just out of the military. I was a military developer. I could get this done for you. Bum, bum, bum. I'm like, okay, bud, let me tell you. I got a meeting in basically 8 days. You have to have something ready in 8 days. If you do it, I'll give you $50,000. At the time, that was a lot of money. Still a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, sir, never forget, it's the funniest thing anybody ever said to me. Sir, I can make a missile hit a tin can from 5,000 miles away. This will be done. I said, make it 70. I was like blown away. The balls on this kid. I'm like, I'm done. This is too easy. I'm like, so I called up Zucon, called up Cool and Dre, called up Khaled, called everyone
Mm-hmm.
up. I said, I need beats, I need production agreements, lawyers. So I get everything all done. I have everyone up. The site looks fucking beautiful. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I believe it was on a Thursday. It was on a Thursday, actually. Because so Thursday, I'm like, Steve, Rifkin, like Steve. It kind of works, but it's very clunky.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a local rapper. I'm like, this kid has to do a sequence because it's not done. Like it's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not fixed. The day before, I'm like, Rich, we're all set to go. He's like, yeah, we're kind of ready to go. What I need you to do is I need you to call me at the meeting and tell me exactly when the guy is going to hit the. I'm like, what are you talking about? Is anything done? He's like, well, the recording portion of it. And I'm like, holy shit, this is so bad. This is so bad. And I'm like, all right, we're going to make it through this somehow. Somehow, some way, we're making it through this. And he says that it's going to be very difficult. You got to call me and press one when you want me to hit the record button. I'm like, are you out of your mind? And we have flip phones, so it's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
anyway. So uh, I have my rapper. I'm like, okay, this is what you got to do. You're going to make believe that you're going to mute your phone or something. Press one. Rich is going to load the beat, and he's going to somehow we're going to record this into it's got to go into like another thing he gave me that plugs into the computer. I don't even know what it was. So now I have hardware too. Like that, it's not a website when you got hardware. I'm like, well, this is just a demo. I talked my way out of it. So anyway, I got it all planned out. We're gonna be fine. We practice it. We got it down. The kid's great on the phone, even though the kid wasn't the brightest, the best rapper in the world or the brightest bulb in the lamp, but he was good enough to get through. So Doug Morris gives me the best intro of my life. I met this guy on the plane. He came
Yeah.
up with this concept that's going to revolutionize the business. It's the greatest idea I ever heard. And I brought in a rapper to do the demo. Here's Ja Rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh shit. Ja Rule doesn't know that we need to hit the button. I'm dead. I'm dead. Here we go again. I'm like, Steve, this isn't going to work. We got a certain sequence we got to go. He's like, no, don't worry. I'll tell. I know Ja Rule. So he stands up in the middle of the meeting, Steve, and says, all right, guys, it's not working 100%. So Ja has to hit this button and tell us, but we're going to get it there. It's just, he told the truth. Sure enough, he goes up, does the demo. Everyone's clapping. Everyone loves it. It kind of worked. I mean, it did work. It just didn't sound great.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we can work on that. We were able to get through it. They're like, so what are you thinking? I said, well, we need 25 million to launch, which I just made up. And, we're going to need 15 million for our pocket for what we've done so far. And Doug says, Nick, what do you think? He's like, I love it. It's like, okay, that sounds great. Let's do it. We closed the deal. And we're paid now. We're good,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm really passionate about this. So at the time, MTV was having struggles because they were transitioning from music videos to reality shows. And they were trying to build their web presence. So I'm like, we got a way out of it. One, everything I said makes sense, but the one thing that no one ever brings up in this conversation, including you, because it's not what comes, how do you adjudicate it? How do you pick the winner? How do you listen? Let's say it works and you got 10 million people. How are we going to figure out who wins? It's a big problem. No one asked the question. So we're trying to figure out, because we gave away money. We launched it. We did the whole thing. And I'm listening to music until, like snippets. And I'm like, oh, I can't listen. Like, I'm just hitting delete because I don't even care if I'm like, just pick this guy. It's fine. And so we did the whole thing and we gave away money and blah, blah, blah. And then MTV was interested. And we met with the CEO of MTV. And he's like, this is perfect. I'm going to take the finalists. We're going to let the viewers vote. Fixes that problem. We're going to put them all in a room together, and we're going to have a reality show, and then the winner gets the record deal and the $100,000, and let them have tasks. And it's a great way to bring music to reality TV. They're like, "What are you thinking?" I'm like, "Well, this is a very big deal for us, so we need 150 million to get it done." Didn't blink. They're like, that sounds about right. I'm like, great, let's do it. So I'm thinking it's going to be easy money like it was before. This is easy, too easy. The board approves. I got two guys on the board from Universal. They're like, yeah, let's do it. This is great. Blah, blah, blah. But my buddy Steve, who I love dearly and I talk to this day, he saying, Joe, we're selling it too cheap. There's a guy who came up with this concept. It's called Facebook. And I bet he pays us 250 million. And I'm going to get a meeting with him. I'm like, okay, cool. But we're in the middle of this deal. If this one goes, we're going. And we getting really close. And I'll never forget, we're at the meeting and Steve just stands up and says, look, the number's 250 million. And the new CEO of MTV at the time goes, that's crazy. We're not spending that. And we have a deal. I'm like, Steve, shut up, please. This is not, please sit down, please, please, please. And the CEO got a little nasty and Steve goes, well, why don't you go fuck yourself? And that was it.
Hard to come back from that.
You know what we wound up getting for the company at the end?
What's that?
Zero. Turn it to a video game. Def Jam Rapster. We already cashed out. We already did great. But yeah, it was we were from a Word document, not even a PowerPoint, to $150 million was under 6 months, and we came this close to getting it done. And yeah, Facebook wasn't interested, and then it was and then American Idol came out, and the whole thing changed.
Oh yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. So it turned into a video game.
Yeah, video game. I got paid nothing on that.
Oh man.
Zero. I think we still owe Universal money for that. I don't even know how that went down. It was a disaster.
So, have you ever done a tally of the number of businesses that you bought and sold and created over the years? Or
Turnarounds and purchases I have, consulting, advisory, and other stuff I haven't. This is my third. I'm in my 13th deal, which I just shared with you. We went to market with Truist, and we didn't get a deal done. And it's in the insurance space. Very familiar with the space. And we're just, that was a turnaround. You know, you're great. This is so great. Remember the guy I told you about when we were the amateur race that he was on my team?
yes.
So press fast forward, 10 years later, and because I did that, it was like a big moment in his life, like that we
Mm,
backed him and we won.
yeah.
Like he still sends me the photo every now and then of us on the podium. I'll show it to you. It's on my phone. He actually sent it to me last week. Um, he called me and he said, "Look, I have a friend who has an insurance company. I need you to take a look at this. There's something wrong." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Dallas." I said, I got a meeting in Dallas next week. I'll do it next week. I met with him. The company's losing $1 zillion. Like it was,
Hmm.
it was in bad shape. Losing $3 million, regulatory problems, um, shareholder issues. So my buddy Scott, who is a dear friend and a great partner, my buddy Scott says, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Look, let's see if they'll let me take the whole thing, and we'll split it. But it's going to need $10 million to fix it up." Um, and we went into it, and I made a presentation to the management team. I'm like, "You guys are dead in probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. I'll give you a lifeline. I'll get you out with no liability. Put a couple of bucks in your pocket, not a lot, a few hundred grand, and let me take it from here." And they all agreed. And I kept 160 people employed, and I met the best CFO I ever worked with, Vicky Ferris, who will be in every deal I do going forward, and uh, built incredible relationships and an incredible team. And now we're, with our downlines, we probably have 600 employees, and did a debt recap with Truist, and also, went to market with Truist, and we turned down uh, what I consider a big offer, and because it wasn't the right time or the right
Hmm.
terms,
Hmm.
and it was too close to the turnaround. Like selling a company, you just get penalized, right? Because it's 4 years out of the turn to 15 million in EBITDA. It's really hard to convince a buyer that it truly did turn. So they
Yeah.
they they beat you up, and I
Yeah.
just wasn't willing to
Not
take
enough
the beat up.
history.
Yeah, I'm making
Yeah.
money. Why would I take the
Yeah.
let it grow? So that's my story into private equity. I started with insurance and wound up in music, and did some movie funding, did a lot of stuff on the creative side, and uh, everything from factoring to trucking, did a
Hmm.
lot in transportation. Anything that was brick and mortar based businesses that was either a turnaround or making money. So to how I compare that back to cars, because everything goes back to cars in my life. It's like the car that needs a total restoration is very valuable
Hmm.
because you get to do it your way
Yeah.
and get to do it perfect. Or the car that's perfect, meaning the company's making money, would be compatible. But
Yeah.
that one in the
Kind of
middle,
turnkey.
the
Yeah.
one in the middle, where it kind of needs a paint job,
Yeah.
but it kind of needs an interior. It's just not the right car. You're
Hmm.
going to spend money on interior, money on paint, money on engine. You're doing a whole restoration. Just buy a beat up car and get it done right. So that's what I compare it to. So I really love the turnarounds, distressed companies, or profitable companies that I could get the a P arbitrage in some way, a multiple arbitrage on, and we buy them at, let's say, 3 to 4 times earnings, increase revenue and earnings by 20, 30%, 40%, whatever we can do. um, and we've been very successful at doing that, and then selling it to a big PE firm at a higher multiple because we've kind of fixed everything. We put it all together for them in a nice package.
Yeah. And maybe a little size premium
Yep.
too, because the company's bigger, right? Well, as you know, our primary line of work is working with business owners in the lower middle market. So 5 to 50 million. I mean, we'll go higher, but we swim in waters that we have very few advisors that do
Yeah.
what we do, right? We feel like it's an underserved market, and we feel like we bring sort of a boutique investment bank firepower to a market that's not really well served. And so, but what we see in there is a lot. There's a big, huge information gap between what the business owners know about the process and the reality of the process and how buyers think,
Yeah.
and so, and it's sometimes it's a big challenge for us.
Oh,
It's probably
sure.
the biggest challenge is to, you talk to some business owners and say, hey, what's your exit plan? Well, I've got this group that just called me, off the street, and I'm not for sale, but we're close to an LOI, and I'm,
Right.
we're well, do you have an advisor? No, we we don't have an advisor. I have a good lawyer, and okay, well, what are you guys going to do? How are they structuring the working capital with you? I'm not sure. What about the reps and warranties, or how do you know that you're getting what the market would bear for your company? And so, just kind of curious as to what your experience has been there. What do you think sellers are really perhaps missing out on? And
It's critical. Number one, the only way deals get done is it's a bidding process, right? So you got Grant Cardone running around telling everything's worth 10x. Well, 10x was so 3 years ago. With interest rates the way they are now,
yeah,
cost of money. Let's say you got a $10 million EBITDA. That's where we live, right? You got a $10 million EBITDA company. You would pay $100 million. Your interest rate right now on debt financing like that, it's going to be 12
mm-hmm.
minimum. With the wrong guy, it's going to be 14. You're upside down $4 million a year. If you don't have definitive 30% growth, you're going to lose money on the deal. 10x is out of the question. And what buyers don't understand is that dynamic. They don't understand the dynamic of the debt, the cost of the money, whether it's you're borrowing the money or whether it's opportunity cost, where
Yeah,
you could put the money out
yeah,
at 14%. That has a value. And um, growing at 20% a year doesn't offset the interest rate. It just doesn't.
mm-hmm.
So 10 is out of the question. Multiples now are floating around that 6, 7 range, unless you got unbelievable growth. So
Right,
what they'll do
right,
is they'll
right.
say, you're going to get 10x, but this is what it looks like. You're going to get 10% of that up front. And then you have to do this, this, and this. Well, if you wind up reaching those goals, your company's now really worth $300 million. So, all you're doing is buying yourself a job for very little money up front. So it's a complicated environment, and it's not, uh, you can't go into this without having someone with the skill set to walk you through it. You just can't. The lawyers are great. I mean, my wife will tell you my biggest fight is with lawyers. I, you know, Blank Rome represents me in all my deals, and we go at it because sometimes I just think they're wrong. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes they're right, but I don't just take the lawyers and because you went to law school, you know the business side of it. I may want to take some regulatory risk. I may not. I may want to take on debt. I may not. There's so many variables, but that's how I run my business. But on the owner side, going into you're swimming with sharks and you don't know what you're doing. You're going to get burned, and you're giving up your company, something you worked for. And that was something I was so passionate about because I really loved saving companies. Um, at the same time, some of the owners have been very difficult. And I was on the other side of that. I went back when I sold my brokerage firm. I remember my office was on the 38th floor of 800 Third Avenue, and I overlooked the Chrysler building. And my office was monstrous, and it was beautiful. And I sold the brokerage firm, and I walked in, and the buyer, rightfully so, was sitting at my desk. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just, you don't mind that. I mean, I bought the firm. I can sit at your desk." I'm like, I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So that was my last day. I got fired that day, rightfully so. So I understood, it's hard to give up. If you're passionate about your business, and you have delusions of grandeur, you can't go into this without an advisor. You're just gonna get your bell rung. And I told you there are guys out there, at smaller firms that hire, kids out of college, give them an internship to cold call companies and get them to write checks for upfront money. Hey, give me 40 grand and we'll represent you. We have a buyer, we have a list of buyers. And, they're writing checks for $40,000 and they're closing, I've been in rooms where they're closing, 4 or 5 a day at a 40, 30, 40% payout and they do nothing. They do zero. So
They just turn it over,
they
right,
just,
to the
yeah,
to the
that's
deal
it.
makers.
It's a sales organization, and it's a shame because that does obviously hurt companies and hurt people, but that's the climate we're in. And I think that the buyer's biggest problems that I see is they overvalue their company. That's what I see all the time. Everybody is worth 10 times earnings. Yeah, when interest rates were zero, I'll give you 10 times, no problem.
What would you say, and maybe in the market that we're dealing with, like the top mistakes that sellers tend to make before?
They don't position themselves out of the gate. If you want to sell your company 5 years from now, you better have your Q of E, you better have a data room, you better have audited financials, you better get rid of all the lifestyle items, like get rid of the outlandish car payments. I don't want to see your kids, your uncle, your aunt, your mom, your dad on payroll that don't come to work. All this stuff has to stop. You're a lifestyle company. I don't buy lifestyle companies. It's not what I do. I don't want a lifestyle company. I want a company that I can do everything perfectly so I can hand the package over to a PE firm. And when that PE firm looks at it or a strategic looks at it, they know they got the deal from me. They know it's right. They don't have to worry about the diligence. And I bring big legal and big banks, are representing me. I don't need representation. I own the banking firm. I still go in with representation because on the sell side, I want them to know that someone else looked at it. So I'm willing to pay $1 million to an advisor, and I know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to pay that money to an advisor simply because I know full well that I need as much power as I'll get that $1 million back tenfold because they're going to know someone or they're going to bid it out or they're going to figure out something that I missed. I've been doing some work with Truist and their banking team has been amazing. And we work hand in hand to get deals done, and we've done a lot of great stuff. So if I didn't have a banking team, I'm not sure you're looked at as seriously. Very similar. If someone sends out an email, because that's what they're doing, they're sending an email with a teaser, right? Are you interested in this? I mean, that's what you may do too. So when it comes from a reputable or it doesn't have to be a big firm, just can be a reputable firm. But when you see Goldman Sachs, you're going to open it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, of course, there's smaller firms out there that have the same credibility, but there's also firms that they won't even open the email. They're like, oh, this is, I know who this guy is. Click. And once you're in the penalty box, you don't get out. So, having a good advisor is so important. So important.
One thing I see, you know, in the U.S., we're primarily a service-based economy, right? I mean, we still make stuff, but if you look at across the board, I think 60, maybe even 70% of our economy, our GDP is service-based. So a big part of value of a lot of these firms, especially in the lower middle market, are the management team and the key employees. And that can be a super touchy subject and topic to handle, right, during this transition. Do we clue them in that we're, as sellers, that we're thinking about selling? Do we include them in the process the whole way? Do we tell them and wait at the closing table? But then the buyers want to talk to them, right? The buyers want to make sure how good are these people? What do they know? Are they going to stay? Are they going to retire? Or, if they're getting up there in years, or I'm just curious, like what your experience has been there.
Man, that's always a struggle. So I build companies to sell. So I have disposable. Everything's disposable. I back up, double back up. If one person, I mean, the whole organization would have to quit for it to fall back. Although I have my CFO, then I have three people under her that are just as qualified. So when you're building a company, you got to be able to spend the money uh, to have backup, have the management team, but it can't be, in my opinion, on the buy side. Now, when I buy it, I don't care because I know, you know, this comes from, again, sweeping floors, right? There's not a job in that company that I feel like I can't do. So if I'm stepping in and I'm buying it, I'm not worried about the accounting because you can always find someone. I'm worried about sales. And if the whole business, the whole sales organization is based on a handful of salespeople, I'm not buying it. I don't, if you're doing $100 million in revenue with two salesmen, I'm not doing it. Now you're doing $100 million in revenue with 1,000 salesmen, but it's costing me more money, obviously, to have the 1,000 salesmen. I want that. Give me the diversity. So if one leaves, I'm good. Um, but I have probably the funniest key man story in history.
I can't wait.
Okay. That Universal deal, get a call from the attorneys at Universal, and they said, look, we ran a little bit of a background check on you, and we noticed you're a pilot, you're a race car driver, and we're not really comfortable. We're trying to get you a key man policy, but no one wants to cover you because of the racing, because I was still active at the time. We need you not to do anything until we get the policy nailed down. No racing, no flying. You just got to it's going to be about 6 months for us to figure this out because we're going to Lloyd's. We'll figure it out. Like, sure. I, I don't need to do anything. I'm like a little upset about the flying because I had my plane. They're like, just please, nothing. Don't do anything. Don't scuba dive. Don't just stop everything. Don't do anything. I'm like, great, no problem. So 2, 3 months go by, and money's already cleared, and you know, phone rings. At the time, IMSA just took over Grand Am again, and they started a series called the IMSA Light Series. Great little cars,
I drove those cars.
fantastic cars. So Joe calls me up. He's like, "Hey, this guy with some story I got. He broke his foot riding his bike or something." He's like, "Do you have a lot of experience in these cars? Like, do you want to run this car?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And think about the key man. So I'm driving along, and the race starts, and I'm crying. I think I'm in second or third, and I'm like just waiting for the guy to make a mistake. Like I'm almost like relaxed in the car
Yeah.
because I know I got him. I got plenty
Time.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
time. Everything's fine. And I hear a little pop, 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 like an odd, but all my gauges are good. I'm like, oh, everything's fine. And all of a sudden, I see a little flame up in the back of the car. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm on fire. But again, been there, hit the fire. So we're like, no big deal. Pull off on the right before 17 on that back straight. And I undo my belts, did everything by the book. I shut off the main and pulled the fire, and I go to get out. For whatever reason, and to this day, I don't know what happened because they're electric fuel pumps. It should have stopped the fuel flow. I think it did, but I think what was in the line, and that's carbon, the whole car was carbon fiber. That thing goes up in flame and blows up. I mean, woof. I burnt a third of my body. There's how I got that. I'm not going to show you my ass. I'm burnt from here up my back. Car blows up. I'm stuck in the car because I had the arm restraints, you know, because and I jump out, and this leg gets caught in the seatbelt, so I got to go back into the fire to release. And I'm fine. I'm alive. I'm good. So there was a bunch of people like fans. I'm like, give me a water. I'm drinking a water. I'm like, whoa, that was a close one. The car's toast. I mean, flames going everywhere, black smoke. Ambulance comes flying over like really late considering what happened. And the guy gets out, and he's like, I'm like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, everything's fine. And the guy's cutting my suit. I'm like, oh shit, that's like a $1,700 suit. You know, Stan 21 suits weren't cheap. He's cutting the suit. I'm like, stop, I'm fine. He's like, you're not fine. He's like, I want you to look at me. And the guy is cutting my suit and doing like, oh my God, like something's wrong. I don't even see any. I'm not putting it together. Next thing you know, I just pass out. And then I woke up on a helicopter going to Jackson Memorial, third degree burns on almost a third of my body. And I signed an agreement with Universal that I wasn't going to do anything stupid, or I'd have to, there was severe penalties. I think it was like $5 million or something like that, or it was like I had to pay for my own key man policy or some shit. So I'm in Jackson Memorial. I'm hanging upside down because my ass is burnt. So they got to hang me.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I'm on morphine. I'm hitting that button like, uh, burns are terrible. And what happened was I actually didn't burn myself. It boiled, the skin boiled because the suit was fireproof, but it was so hot that it
Yeah.
boiled my skin. And
Appetizing.
yeah, it was a good time. So I finally, 2 days, 3 days later, I get my phone, because again, everything was scattered all over, like just, my co-driver brought me my phone and we got it charged, and doctors are coming in every 5 minutes, worried about infection. And I call up Steve. I'm like, Steve, I fucked up. And he's like, where have you been? It's been 3 days. What the fuck? And he's ripping me, and I don't have the energy. So I'm just like, let him rip. And then when he's done, and he's like, wait a minute. And my heart monitor is going beep, beep, beep. He's like, are you fucking recording me, you scumbag? And he hangs up on me. I'm like, oh my God. I call him back. I'm like, I'm in the hospital. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, I got in a race car and I burnt, I got, it's bad. And he's like, we, well, how are we going to hide this from Doug? I'm like, yeah, you're not. And the insurance company's going to know. I mean, it was in the new, like it was in the Sebring newspaper and all that. So, oh man. Yeah. So the biggest, that was the biggest bonehead move, key man story. So yeah, I don't trust the key man conversation because I've been on the other side of it. But we made it through. I had to write it cost me a lot of money. I had to pay for the key man policy, and the insurance company was just brutal. And I explained to them, when I had to go on an interview with the insurance people, it was like 7 people in the room, and I'm like, the chances of it happening twice is slim to none. You have nothing to worry about. Uh, and they didn't think that was funny. I think they raised the premium
They
because of
never
that.
do.
Yeah,
They never do.
yeah, no sense of humor, those insurance guys.
You've been in a number of partnerships.
Yep.
Um, I see partnerships a lot. I'm very fortunate that my father and my uncle had one for 27 years that
Yeah.
was successful, but I've seen them tear apart families and friendships and all of that stuff. And um, I'm just curious as to what like insight you might have to offer about people that are considering. I just spoke to my son's high school business class last week and just said, hey, they're not a bad thing, but you better think about it. You better paper up your exit plan and
Hmm.
buy sell agreements and stuff. And just curious what your experience.
No, you're 100% right, but and that's the right way. And I like to do things the right way. My problem is the lost, and saying this after that story but it was completely innocent. I didn't realize I was violating the agreement. I was so excited about racing. But that being said, I think a handshake is very valuable. And unfortunately, a document can't cover everything,
Yeah, true.
and it can't cover your personality conflicts. So I loved, well, I don't have one bad partnership story. I don't have one story where we weren't on the same page. We've certainly had conflicts, and disagreements and challenging times. But as far as partners, I've had 10 or 12 different partners, whether I bought the company and they were there, and uh, I'm still great friends. I do have one great story that we sold a company, and there was an accounting discrepancy that made me very uncomfortable that came up at the sale. It was a related party that wasn't disclosed, that was an error. Um, and I confronted my partner on it, and he responded in a way that I didn't think was appropriate. Because if it was me, I would be like, "Look, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll cover it." Now we're talking about a couple of hundred grand on a $20 million sale. It was meaningless at the time, but Um, that was a moment of discomfort, but to this day we talk and we worked it out. I've never really. I love all my partners. I love the people that I work with. Uh, I'm not coming from a negative experience. That being said, I hear horror stories. I just haven't been exposed to them. I think I'm insulated a bit because I'm very direct and very upfront right out of the gate. If you're going to do business with me, it's so important.
I don't know you. I don't want to like play to a stereotype, but I feel like that sort of the stereotype of like the Italian family is like you just get it all out,
Get it out.
like, and you
Yeah.
just work it out, and like you get it out of your system, and then at the end of the day, you're breaking bread, and
Yeah.
you move on.
And it's a very special thing.
So like with the key man, no, it's not the key man, but the partnerships. I feel like the key part is really making sure that you have like clearly laid out separation,
Yeah.
provisions in there, because I've seen it before. I mean, we were one of the largest deals we were ever working on. We had a buyer, we had an agreement with the price and the leader of the company, but they had 9 partners, and they required a unanimous vote. Some of the partners were active,
Yeah.
some were passive and sitting at home and receiving dividends, and they're like, "Why am I going to agree to this vote? Because then the checks stop, right?
Right.
I get 6x. Okay, that's nice, but I'm not working, and
Right.
so it's amazing that you see those, and we really try to stress to people, hey, even if you're not hiring us, please make sure if you're doing partnerships, like you've got buy sell provision in there, and you've got because things change, right? You and I could
Yep.
be partners right now, and things are great, but I get sick or something happens or divorce or I want to move, and priorities change. So it's incredible how much of that you see, and it is nothing but a value destroyer.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that largely has not been an issue for you, but I think the conflict resolution part of your personality lends itself to
Oh,
it
up
just
front.
nipping that in the bud,
Yeah,
right?
up front. What is it going to take for you? What do you need to walk on the deal? Do you want to walk on the deal? What are your goals? What are your personal goals? Getting that in the if I have 9 partners, I'm telling them out of the gate, I'm not wasting my time. My time is valuable. Your time is valuable. If I got you 10x is out of the question. If I got you 6x,
Yeah.
and you were getting this check, would you take it? Well, I don't know. Well, we're done talking. Go
Yeah.
find another banker because I'm not doing it. It's
Yeah.
just it devours your time.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is I'm happy to invest my time. And, I've done one of my most successful deals was a friend of mine that I grew up with called me up and was about to file for bankruptcy, and we turned it and sold it. So I think that when you're rescuing a deal and you do what you say you're going to do, they'll listen to you. When you buy a deal and you're stuck in it and now they kind of work for you, you have to be prepared to let them go and replace them
Yeah.
if you're not going to get along. My hope
Yeah.
is we all get along.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
looking, I don't strip companies, I build relationships,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
So Joe, what would you say? I keep hearing this phrase and this term now about superpower, like, and I kind of enjoy it and entertain that idea. But like, what would you say your superpower is as a business person?
Hmm.
You've bought and sold a lot. You may have lost on a little, but overall, you've done very well. Like, what is your superpower? What is the strength that you would stand by more than anything? And what would your peers say about you?
Such amazing questions. Um, my superpower, I believe my superpower is I don't, if you look at like Elon Musk, and I'm not comparing myself in any way, shape, or form. He's brilliant and multi-billionaire, but no one ever told him that he couldn't do something. So he's building rockets. He's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah.
On a very small scale, when it comes to mid-sized businesses, I don't have any fear of anything. Walking in, and I'm very confident that I'm in my element and I'm happy to be there, and that's my asset. I'm confident I could fix it, and I have a plan before I close. Um, what would my peers say? I believe,
It's easier to say that your peers would say than you saying it about yourself,
right.
I think, right?
It's a very good question. I would love to. I will tell you this. I'll answer that question with a statement that doesn't really answer your question, but it's meaningful. To this day, from 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I'll get a message occasionally that says, "Hey, I worked for you and you were so influential and I just accomplished this." And in many cases, they far exceeded what I accomplished. And for them to give me credit after all those years and say, "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you," that's what gives me my
Yeah.
superpower, right?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing to me. And just a month ago, I was having, it was a date night with my wife. I was at ZZ's in Miami, and I got a call. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's definitely in jail. Like, I haven't heard from him in 30 years. I'm like, holy
Butt
shit.
dial, right?
And so I pick up the phone. I'm like, Rich? He's like, I just want to let you know that I just sold my company and you were very tough on me, but you gave me the tools, the desire, and the motivation to accomplish this. And you're the only phone call I made because my dad
Wow.
wasn't there for me. And I didn't have any other mentors, and I always looked up to you. And I just want to say thank you. And I put it on speakerphone right away when he started because I wanted my wife to hear it, because we all want,
See, honey, I'm
if
okay. I'm an okay guy.
it's coming, let's get it. You know what I mean? Let everyone get it. And that's very meaningful to me. So I'd like to think, I told you I have a home in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I coincidentally, I ran into one of my employees' brother bought a place, and I ran into him, and he was my head trader. He was my assistant trader that I made the head trader. And he comes over to me, and I didn't even recognize him. And he said, Joe, I can't believe I'm seeing you. I just want to let you know what you've done for me. You gave me a job out of college, and then you made me a head trader, and that laid the foundation for my entire life. And just thank you. And it's so meaningful for me. So um, I don't think anybody would turn around and say, I don't think anybody has as it relates to business, because I'm in touch with everyone, hundreds of people I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody that could say they had a negative experience with me. And I think that's why I keep getting deals. I don't advertise.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
social media. I don't look, the deals just come. The last thing I need is more business. Like I
Yeah.
don't even want the
Yeah.
business plan. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what makes me feel good.
But you said it earlier, but like you're a handshake guy,
Yeah.
and I think it's a dying breed.
Oh, it's
And
dead.
my father was a handshake guy, and it still is. So, to me, those are people I can relate to, and I still think it's an important. It means everything,
Yeah, it
right? Like
does.
I think paperwork has a it has a purpose,
It has value,
but
100%.
if you're not a handshake person, I don't need
Yeah.
like this is we don't even need to go here.
The paper is subjective. Ethics aren't. Paper is just so subjective. You could get an attorney that'll shoot holes through
Yeah,
your
right.
entire, document.
Switching gears to the personal stuff, because you're have so much free time on your hands, you just went ahead and wrote a cookbook about
Yeah,
Italian
bestseller,
cooking.
baby.
So yeah, tell me about that, like your whole cooking journey and
So the cooking journey was interesting. So the name of the book is Amici del Lago, and that means friends on the lake. And what happened was we own a place in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which
yeah.
I told you about. It's on a golf course on a lake, beautiful. We made incredible.
Floating island green, by the way. They can
Yeah,
move it around.
yeah.
They
The
can
guy
move it around
takes you out on a boat. It's
like
it's it's
80
incredible.
yards to 200 yards. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, that's our second course. We have our own course in our community on our island, and then you could go play over there as well. So we built incredible friendships, and it's like I make the joke. It's almost like the joint. All the Italians gravitate together. So it's just really funny. But the food was horrendous. The food just wasn't good. And I'm talking to Mike Melman, who owns Discovery Land, and they own Baker's Bay.
Oh
They
yeah.
the Yellowstone Club, and they own Gaza Ranch as well, and that's where we have our place. Unedible. So they challenged me, and they said, "Well, you think you could do better?" I'm like, "Yeah." They go, "Go ahead." So I'm like, "All right, let me cook." And they're like, "No, Mike will never allow it." I'm like, "Okay." I call Mike. I'm like, "Mike, I want to cook." He's like, "I don't give a fuck what you do." I'm like, "Okay." So there's an outdoor venue called the Orchard. And, our first year, I would have a dinner party at our house. It was like 10 people. Then it was 20 the next year, 30. And then now we're at 120 people. And, I cooked this huge meal and everyone loved it. But then I'm getting crushed. Everybody's sending me texts. How do I make this? How do you make that? What are you cooking for
Yeah.
Christmas? And I'm cutting and pasting from my notes. I'm like, I'm just going to write down some recipes.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one recipe a day.
Is this family stuff, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of them are mine.
Okay.
It's like a
A
mix.
mix.
I apologize for not bringing you a book. I should have actually. I'll drop it off to you.
We're
So eh,
I'll buy it on Amazon, Joe. It's fine.
I write these recipes as a little PDF. I'm thinking, and now I'm up to like 100 recipes. I'm like, I wonder if I get this published. I was out at a founders dinner in Manhattan, and they just sat me with this guy who happens to be he did Thomas Keller's book From French Laundry. He's a book designer. I'm like, no way. I'm sitting next to a book designer. I have a book. He's like, yeah,
Yeah. Don't we all?
yeah. And I said, look, let me send it to you. This is the theme. Here are the pictures. He's like, look, I'll refer you to someone. It's not what I do. He's in London. He calls me like a week later. He's like, you know what? This is going to be really fun. I really like what you did. It's not just a cookbook. It's like, it was really like the stories and just, you did it really interesting. I love it. I'll do it. I'm like, great. What do I owe you? He's like, don't worry about it. Nothing. Designed a whole book. The book looks like, the book looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, now what do I do? He's like, well, call this publisher and you put it on Amazon and whatever happens, happens. Put it on Amazon and it just got legs. I didn't promote it. My wife did one post on Instagram, but the community, everyone from the community bought it because they were killing me for recipes. And then they want to FaceTime. Like it's Christmas
Yeah.
Eve, I'm cooking, and they want to
I'm
FaceTime.
kind of busy.
I can't see how your eggplant it looks like. Stop. Just stop calling me. And the updates. Oh, it came great. They loved it. My texts were I couldn't take it. So the book got some legs, and that's just something I love. I also have a number of art pieces that I've done that are in galleries right now. I just love being creative.
Yeah.
It's my happy place. And now that I don't have music, I had to replace it, and I replaced it with cooking. But I worked in a lot of restaurants growing up. It was something I always did. So it's our third year. Last year we did 180 people for a charity event for Kelly Chase, who's a pretty well-known hockey player, played for the Blues, overcame terrible case of cancer, and we did a big charity event for him and raised a whole bunch of money, and it became the hot ticket in the entire. Now Discovery Land has about, I want to say, 60 properties, Baker's Bay,
Yeah.
Yellowstone Club.
Familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, and the buzz everywhere I go, it's really funny. They're like, are you gonna cook? I'm like, no. So it became like a little bit of a thing. But yeah, the cookbook was good fun. Again, making everything smaller. uh, I had time to write one recipe a day.
Yeah.
It's one recipe.
Yeah.
Now I did have to recook some stuff, which was good fun. Today we're making this. I'm going to put it in the book. The kids got involved, and it took about a couple of months and put together a great book and put it up and became a bestseller. And very proud of it. My next book is something you'd be interested in. It's called Deal Mode, and that's coming out hopefully in January. And it's all about what we're talking about, how to position your company for a sale, and just enjoy being creative.
Well, I think I would think and hope that writing is akin to working with your hands, right? Like just
Yeah.
being creative, utilizing the skill set that you have, and I'll definitely be plugging that and reading it when it comes out
Well, I
because
write like I talk, so
yeah.
it's just
Well, if
going.
there's stories in there, I'm pretty sure it'll do really well. I do a thing that learned how to do seafood boils a
Oh,
few
it's
years
great.
ago,
Lots of
and
fun.
I love barbecue is like probably my first love, but the seafood boils we've learned, and now I've cooked and fed up to like 50 people, and we do lobster
Fantastic.
legs and lobster claws and uh, I guess you do lobster
Potatoes,
tails, crab leg,
corn,
yeah,
everything. You
all that
do it
stuff,
all.
and I
Sausage, everything.
and yeah,
Throw it on the
sausage, shrimp,
table with some like
yeah, all of that stuff.
newspaper.
And it's so fun, and I just feel like it's not just the food's awesome, but it's just something that like brings people together. And
Brings
it's like
everyone
butter on
together.
your hands, like you roll your sleeves up. There's nothing pretentious about it.
Everybody's laughing. Everybody's having a good time. Food is a very important connector for people, and it's another lost art. Most families don't even sit and have dinner
Yeah,
together. The kids
yeah,
are doing this. Sit down, have a dinner, have something that's traditional in your life. It's very important. It's
yeah.
very important.
My wife's done a great job of making sure that like we have that time together every night. Because now that the kids are teenagers, like
Yeah.
they're kind of gone a lot.
Yeah.
Like they're
They're
really not
gone. Yeah.
home. Like, no, no, you're gonna be home for dinner. This is like 30 minutes that we're gonna spend together. No phones, and I just love to take like another level on the weekends with I just literally, Joe, I woke up one day. I've been very little experience in cooking. And I was like, I want to learn how to do barbecue. I love barbecue. I love everything it stands for.
Yeah.
And I bought a big green egg like that. And I caught some briskets on fire at first, but like I love even the process of just learning. Like
Yeah.
that's okay. I burn it. It tastes like beef jerky, but like I'm just gonna enjoy the journey and like be patient. And now it's something that I love and just but people talk about it,
Yep.
and it's a way to get people together, and like especially when you think about it, large groups, it's so much better to eat at somebody's house in a restaurant. Like you
Oh
get in a
yeah.
big group, and especially and there's little kids, they don't want to sit down and do that. So when you do that and you serve it at a table and people can run around and grab a barbecue sandwich, and it's just there's something about it
So
that
great.
brings people together that that is so fulfilling to me. And of course loved having a cocktail, but not sitting on my butt, like actually up doing
Yeah.
something and like creating a sense of camaraderie. And so,
I love it.
um,
I just love it. And you know, for Bethany Christian School, we do a charity dinner, and you know, the first year it was like it sold for like $1,100. Second year it's like 5,000. I think
yeah,
last year
a
it went for
spaghetti
like
dinner or something.
60. I
Yeah,
do a whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
please, I did 7 courses. People walked out, they were like, I think it went for like 16 or $18,000 last year. It's like it's become a staple item like that
Yeah,
people love because it's just you're eating at my home. I do all the cooking. Um, my house is positioned. You've been to my home,
yeah,
but where it's a good entertaining house. So I put
yeah,
my show on. I love talking about it. Everyone
yeah,
gets a little cookbook and we do a little shtick and it's great. But food has been a very important part of my life. And now I'm moving on to like more complicated uh, um, dishes. I'm not going to say Michelin star because I don't love that type of cuisine, but I'm starting to work on uh, different dishes away from your traditional Italian and incorporating some other uh, types of food
yeah.
into that as well. So I may do a second book I'm working on. I'm like 35 recipes in. I need another 35. So
That's the sweet spot, like 65
60,
ish.
70,
Yeah,
that's enough. I mean,
yeah.
you're not going to get through the book. So, you're not going to cook everything in the book. But I will tell you, I'll drop the book off to your house tomorrow, but you have to try the Philly cheesesteak. They're not Philly,
Oh
Brooklyn
man,
cheese. I use filet mignon and New York strip, mascarpone cheese, peppers, onions,
I love
cream.
cheesesteaks. I love
Yeah, but this isn't
cheesesteaks.
your normal. This is
I'm sure that
just
this is way better.
it, ask around.
I'm not an expert in making them, although I try, but I
Yeah,
am an expert in eating them for
yeah.
sure.
You
So
could
you're
ask
just
anybody.
like, you probably called John and figured this out
Yeah.
before, but that's awesome. Speaking of books, like, I don't know if you're a big reader, but like, are there books that were transformative to you over time? I find that a lot of entrepreneurs are, whether you listen to them or whatever, were sort of key in sort of forming, your mind, your processes over the years, or
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's been a lot of sale. Like it was all like, hey, sales books, and then you
yeah,
reach a certain age,
which
and
is
then it's like
okay.
spiritual books. I want to learn more about, um, uh, like trying to connect. Recently, I read Meditation by, oh my God, I'm getting a blank. Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
So when you listen, and I was listening to the book because it's a really difficult read, like
Yeah.
tough read
Yeah.
to get through because it's written, in the Roman Empire, in the words of the Roman Empire. So it's a really
Yeah.
hard read.
Yeah.
And but that book hit me between the eyes.
Really.
Yeah, I read it 3 times now, and
He was
there's
brilliant, I know.
so many quotes that just how nothing matters. It sounds morbid, but it's not that you're going to be dead, so nothing matters. But there's you have to take everything a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And we spoke briefly about this earlier. It's just a, we live in a world where we go, go, go. We can't compete.
Yeah.
There's always someone with more money. There's always someone doing more stuff.
Yeah.
So I base my life now off of creativity and experiences. And yes, I've paid the dues and paid
Yeah.
the price
Yeah.
of getting to a point where I can do that. But um, you know, it's when it's all over,
Yeah.
it's where does the money go? What happens to all of your everyone
Yeah.
forgets. Everyone unfortunately, the first year people will be very sad that you're gone. The second year, people will not remember as much. By the 10th year, there'll be very distant memories. So live your life uh, with passion and be as happy. It's hard to be happy all the time. I have moments, believe me. But when you really drill down on it, at the end of the day, focus on your family, focus on being the best person you can be, focus on your business if you're passionate about it. And when you reach a certain age, look, I'm not saying if you're 20, if you just graduated college, find your passion. That's
Yeah.
bullshit. Go get a job, work, go get a job. You may be passionate about whatever job you get, and that'll get you
Right.
out of it, right? But at a certain point in your life, you have to say, okay, I've kind of burned a lot in my soul by working so hard and not focusing on anything but work. And that's why my family is really important to me. I have a great opportunity to work out of my home and really focus on my children. I have a 23-year-old from a previous marriage that's up at FSU, and he had some learning disabilities and struggles. And everyone said he's not a candidate for college and he should go to trade school, which, by the way, the guys in trade school are making all the money. But and he's a straight A student at FSU, and he owns 3 homes in T, up by FSU and in Tallahassee, and he's doing tremendously well. He's renting them out and making money and following the real estate plan. And I haven't helped him all that much, financially, hardly at all. And he's getting his own financing, and he swings a hammer, and he's doing everything right. My 2 little ones, I invest a lot of time in them,
Yeah.
and I make sure I don't miss anything. And it's going back to what's simple, right?
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing.
And is it amazing this book that impacted you so much was written how long ago?
I don't even know. That's
Before,
an interesting
before
question. It's so is the Roman Empire. I mean, whenever that was.
yeah, I mean Caesar was
Are you going to
BC.
give me a quiz? I mean,
I, long
I
enough.
didn't. I
We
wasn't
don't
going to
need to
study
split
dates.
hairs here,
Oh
but
my God, I didn't know this was a history test. Shit.
it was rhetorical. How long ago? Like long time
A
ago.
long ass time.
Definitely pre like Oprah Winfrey show,
Yeah,
and
pre Oprah. Yeah, it
and
was pre-cable
yeah,
TV.
um, just kind of winding down. Like what would you say? I mean, you've done well in your life, and you've got philanthropic passions. What do you support and why?
Uh, I struggle with that because I really want to make sure that whatever money I'm giving gets to the end user. And
Yeah,
charities today are really hard to, nail down. Um, we're very uh, we really support our school and the church. But when we see someone in need, we're very charitable on a case by case basis.
yeah,
Like that charity event we did for Kelly Chase in Idaho, that was a big deal to us. And, we supported it, raised a shit ton of money. And we do a lot of things, but my real passion is if I can mentor someone, and it's not touching his life,
mm-hmm.
it's touching the lives that he'll touch, right?
Right.
So it spreads. And I think that that's the best. We got to teach people to fish again.
Yeah,
We're in a time when uh, people don't want to work with their hands. They don't want to get dirty. Um, it's expensive to live. I know people who graduated, Wharton Business School with, MBAs, and they're working for a starting salary of 200 grand, and they're in Manhattan and they can't make ends meet. It's a different time, and I think we have to get back to um, traditions. Like look at other cultures. Look at, like, I just got back from Africa. That culture is, they're happy. And go to Italy. They sit outside a
yeah,
cafe. They,
yeah,
argue, fight like hell, and then they eat and have fun, and everybody's smiling. Greece. I mean, we have it so wrong because we've lost our family values.
yeah.
You know, the school is raising our children, and thank God we're in a good school, and it's great. But at the same time, there's just too many inputs right now to our children politically, whatever your political side is. Children need to play. They don't need to hear what Donald Trump is doing, or Kamala Harris, or whatever. They just need to play. They need to go outside. You know what your house is for? Sleeping and eating.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be outside, and it's hard because they'd rather play video games, and they rather scroll on their
Yeah,
phone, and we're guilty of it. I have my limit set on my phone, 15 minutes on Instagram, because I scrolled through, and after 10, I'm like, what am I doing?
yeah,
That's 10 minutes of my life I just flushed down the toilet.
yeah. Sure.
But we have to do it. It's part of life, and it's part of, like you said, marketing, and it's part of everything. But there's no room for that I don't believe, and there's nothing I can do about it. I will say this. My closing statement about social media would be, and if it wasn't Zuckerberg, it would have been someone else, but he single-handedly destroyed the childhood of millions and millions and millions of kids. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
And, if he was sitting here, I would debate it with him, because they're learning too much, too young, and they're not
yeah.
being kids.
It's been it's been hard. It's what he created has evolved to Snapchat and TikTok, which are,
Doesn't
I mean, I've
stop.
seen the
Yeah.
fruits of that, and they're not good. And there's I saw a post the other day, and somebody said, "Why are all the kids wearing hoodies to class in August?" And I said, "I'll tell you why. It's because, for the most part, they're self-conscious.
Yeah.
Whether they're overweight or underweight,
Yep. Lack
even
of
underweight, you're
confidence.
not.
Yep.
You're like they'll, the kids will put their hands around your wrist and go, "Why, you're so skinny? Your wrist
Yeah.
is skin like everything." If you're not fitting that perfect mold, they're just they're brainwashed to think that there's a certain norm, and if you don't fit it, you're an absolute freak show.
And there's nothing we can do about it. It's very hard to fix. I'm sorry.
It's
I
hard.
wish I had a formula for you, but there is none. Just try to get your kids outside. I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah,
struggle with it. You only got 5 minutes on video games, then you got to go outside. Then they go outside and they sit around, so they come back in and play video games. And
yeah,
our kids are great. They love it. They love being outside. But at the same time, you know, this generation is really challenged, and it's a dopamine instant.
Yeah.
Get that
Yeah.
dopamine.
I think even now my oldest is like, he's like, kind of wish I didn't have access to it as early as I did. Like he's already not even,
Yeah.
he's not even a legal adult yet, and he's getting that.
So
But
get this, there are 15, 16-year-old girls who are pre on OnlyFans saying, I turn 18 on this date and I'm allowed to do photos at 18.
wow,
So log on now and join now. So you could, I mean, 2 years out. And yes, the
crazy.
people who are subscribing are the problem as well.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. It's not the kid, but
What led you to get there?
this
Right.
is what we
Yeah.
created.
Right.
And the amount of money that they're making on these, you know, these girls on OnlyFans are making $1 million, you know. So it's just a different world, and it's not a world that I agree with.
Yeah.
And I have questioned myself. I mean, you know, in Idaho, things are a little bit different as far as like you're outside more and you're doing stuff, but the kids are in the same mental,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
place. I don't know where it goes, but I know I'm going to do the best I can as a father. I'm going to focus on my children, and I'm going to worry about my home because I can't fix everyone else's. But this is, you know, this something's got to give. And Mark Zuckerberg made a move just the other day to try to stop anybody below the age of 16 coming on Instagram, which I thought was uh, a good step in the right direction. So
Yeah.
hopefully some of these social media people wind up getting a little bit of a conscious and realize what they're doing. There's human trafficking. I'm very passionate about stopping human trafficking. It's happening under our nose. We support, you know, anti human traffic groups. It's a big, big
Yeah.
problem, and we support it. We listen. We just do the best we can. That's it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of hurdles. You know, I used to come, you know, wake up in the morning, go to school or go to work, and then come home, have a bite to eat, say, Mom, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
See you at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever time I had to be home, and
Be home for dinner.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We got to work through it. I'm just gonna 100% nothing, no piece of business comes in front of my wife and kids, and being the best how you be the best father, in my opinion, is by being the best husband. Like, just be the best person you could be, the best husband you could be. And everybody's going to disappoint. Everyone's going to make mistakes sometimes. There's going to be issues, but at the end of the day, that's all we can do is focus on us. So family is very important to me. And it wasn't when I was younger, but it is now for sure. And I'm just very lucky that I didn't miss out, or have my kids miss out on experiencing, you know, what I hopefully can teach them. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think you got a lot to teach your kids, and clearly you're passionate about it, and your heart's in the right place. And that's all I got. Really
That's it.
appreciate you coming
We'll wrap
on.
it up.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for having me.
I could have done this more hours for sure, but we had to cut it at some point. But
Oh, look, we got the thing too.
Oh yeah, yeah, all that.
All right. Oh, I love it. Look at that.